Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Indie Created Comics Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Angel, with John Pepe.
How's it going, Angel?
It feels like I just saw you, bro, like 20 minutes ago.
I know. It was a few hours ago, but it does feel like 20 minutes because you're in like stasis. You don't want to do too much, but when you have two different podcasts going on.
Yeah.
So you do nothing.
Especially when you're doing like 5 podcasts in a day.
Yeah.
It's a crazy. But hello, kiddies. Welcome to this edition of the Indie Creator Spotlight. We're really excited to have our guest on today. It's funny because most of the time we're talking about artists and writers that we admire and stuff like that. And oftentimes you find one that can do it all. Mm-hmm. So if we look at, I'm always going to bring up his name. It's like I have a man crush or something. Daniel Warren Johnson. He's a writer artist. And James Stucco.
We were talking about earlier today.
Earlier today. Yep. Yeah, writer artist. It takes them a little while to get their projects out because they're doing everything, but when they're that good, you just don't care because you're gonna wait for it. I'm still peeved about that Orphan and the Five Beasts having to wait so long for it, but I'm so glad it's actually finally out. So yeah, I'm talking to you, James. All right, yeah. So we've got another writer artist, one man army that kind of does it himself. So without further ado, let's bring in Senor David. How are you, David?
Hey, guys. How are you? Hey, Angel. Hey, John. Thanks for having me back on. I appreciate it.
It's great to have you back, man.
Yes, of course. It's always good to talk comics and talk the business with, somebody who's doing the exact same thing that we're doing and has the same passion for the medium that we have. So, yeah, it's all good.
So, I guess before we kick it off, David, remind us, because you gave us something different to read this time than the prior time, but kind of tell us a little bit about Correct Handed Comics, what you've got already done and in the can, and then what you got coming down the pike.
So I've been self-publishing for about 7 years now. My focus has always been my 50-issue maxi series, and we could talk about how stupid I am for trying a 50-issue maxi series out of the gate. But my 50-issue maxi series, The Offspring, I just published issue 33, and I'm still working on, and my hope is late October to have issue 34 out. I have multiple one-shots that I use as kind of like a bridge to my work, because I understand that as an indie artist, sometimes 50 issues, people are like, oh, he's never going to get 50. I'm not going to bother with that. But like I said, I'm already at 34. Wow. So I use that kind of like a bridge to, for people to say, maybe I don't want to start the, volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of The Offspring, but let me try a couple of his one-shots. Let me try a couple. I've got two 100-plus page graphic novels. One is a space epic, and the other is Late Lightspeed, and the other one is Evolution Utero, which is about a woman who is the worst woman in the world, and she gets impregnated with a superpowered fetus. So she has that nurture versus nature, how parenting changes you, and she still makes bad choices through the whole thing. So it's a fun little ride. Or my other 100-plus page graphic novel, The Loved Ones, which is about the children of classic movie monsters who are kidnapped by a monster hunter, like a Van Helsing type character, raised by the monster hunter, and then they go out and hunt their own parents. So I've had a lot of books out in the last 7 years or so.
Nice.
And I have tried really hard to make sure that quality and quantity go hand in hand. And being a one-man band, I'm in charge of everything. I've been lucky enough to work with a couple great people here and there as other writers, and I do primarily most of the drawing. So I've been really lucky in that respect. But for the most part, it's been a really fun ride, and I can't believe that I'm hoping by the end of the year to have issue 35 of The Offspring out. I only have 15 issues left, which is a very doable situation. Not like it was when I was on issue 3. I'm like, I'm so stupid. Why am I doing that?
You're already past the halfway marker, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I like the idea that, you did set out, you gave yourself a nice round number, again, a very ambitious number. It's not sort of like a Dave Sim Cerebus, like I'm going for 300, or a Todd with, and again, that's something that Dave did all himself. Todd McFarlane, obviously with Spawn, he was like, I'm going to go way past 300 if I can. But it's not all him at that point, right? Yeah. So the idea that you're able to sort of keep all of this under your purview must be very satisfying, especially now to be past the halfway point. Yeah. What is The Offspring about, and what kind of led you on this journey 7 years ago? Because we've noticed a lot, like there's a few people who, during the pandemic, they decided, what, I'm not going to make bread. I'm going to make comics, right? And I'm going to learn how to do that craft. That's going to be my pandemic thing. And then it stuck and they carried through. This is a journey that you started on a couple of years before that. Something you always wanted to do as a kid, or was it something that came along later in life?
Yeah, this is actually a journey I started when I was about 15 or 16 years old. I just turned 50 this year, so you can do the math there. But
I can relate.
Had these characters. Yeah, yeah.
I've
had these characters since I was probably brag.
2 days, yeah.
Well, 2 days, 2 days.
Oh, almost there. Good,
almost
good.
there.
Yeah, I've had these characters since I was like 16 years old. The story has changed and matured as I have changed and matured. But essentially, the premise of the book has always been there. I wanted a story and characters that felt like people that I grew up with, felt like people who were friends or neighbors, that were the main protagonists, that had things going on in their life that could not be solved by punching the bad guy or by putting on a costume and a cape. It wasn't, for me, it wasn't about the bad guy of the month or any of that stuff. For me, it was about creating a narrative with these characters that walk them through the stages of childhood trauma. So each of these 4 main characters, I started off in the first 2 volumes with 3 main characters, and there's a 4th character that I bring on later. And there's a whole reason, there's a whole story reason that this character's gone. But all 4 of the main characters grew up with childhood trauma. They meet in an alternative school and come to realize that they not only share a trauma-filled past, but they also share a mental link with each other. And as they get closer physically and mentally to each other, they start to develop these nature-based elemental powers. And they start to realize that they are magnets for monsters, paranormal. And they start at one point, there's even a whole big time travel thing that I do. So I use monsters, paranormal, time travel as like analogies for how to recognize, how to confront, how to not get over trauma, but how to be able to use your past and your knowledge to be able to move forward in your life, even though there is trauma.
That's cool. And obviously they lean on each other to move forward. Yes.
Yeah, in the beginning, there's the main 3. 2 of them hate each other. they don't like that they are thrust in with these people. They want to go their separate ways. They don't want anything to do with each other. But through circumstances, of course, they start to, as the story grows in like the first 13 issues, 26 issues, they start to rely on each other. And one of the taglines of the book is, "Where's your safe place?" And for these characters, they've never had a safe place. They come to realize, spoilers, but they come to realize that the 3 of them together are their safe place. They start to trust each other. They start to realize that they are developing into this weird family type situation. And that's when this 4th character comes in and throws a wrench in the entire works, which was completely on purpose. Exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah. And I know Angel likes to ask this question a lot of folks who have these arcs planned out. Did you begin with the end in mind? Did you have the end point set, and then you kind of work and then we'll go to the beginning, work from there? Or is the end game, the end point, is that something that you're going to see where you're at when you get there?
No, I've had a plan for years and years and years. I know exactly what the last page is going to look like. It is, for me, about that growth as a human being. So it's through these analogies of monsters and paranormal and time travel, it's about how these four characters grow and change and accept each other for who they are, while going through these traumatic events, but also while having fun adventures, time travel adventures, while punching monsters, while beating the bad guys. So it is really kind of, I think, kind of a deep underpinning story with a lot of fun stuff that happens.
That's awesome. So let me ask a question. There's a couple of questions I want to ask because it's bonkers in my head right now. So, like last show we actually had a team of people that were working together. We had artists, writers, and multiple writers that were on there, working collaboratively as a team to get their story together. Now you're a one-man army. What do you see as the pros and cons of that?
I would say the biggest pro is the buck stops here. That if it doesn't, if the story doesn't work or the art doesn't work or whatever it is, it's my fault. I'm the one that's in charge of everything. So for me, that's kind of a pro also.
Nothing gets lost in translation between writer and artist.
I am 100% responsible for the product. And like I said, that could be a con or a pro depending on how you look at it. But also, I think that one of the cons is that teamwork aspect of having multiple people on the team. I love brainstorming, and I love bouncing ideas off of people. And sometimes that idea of having other people to bounce off and to be able to maybe see the story from a different perspective from other people is really important for creating. I'm lucky enough that my wife listens to me talk as we're walking, and I'm like, so this character's going to do this, and this character's going to do this, and she'll usually chime in with a pretty solid question, and I'll go, oh wow, okay, what about this? Yeah. And then I'll move forward with what it is. So while I enjoy the aspect of brainstorming with other people and trying to produce something with other people, which I have in the past, and it's always really fun. I think that ultimately for me, it being completely my responsibility, that takes adds the pressure, but also takes the pressure off because it's me. If I need to take a couple of days because of a holiday, or I need to do this or that, or if I'm running behind, it's all my fault. So I don't have to worry about contacting anybody who isn't doing it. I'm the one. So for me, it just really works out well. And I can get a full color book out. It usually takes me, give or take, 2 months to be able to go from the thumbnails to the pencils to the inks to the colors to the letters and then publish. So after 7 years, I've got my process down. It's something that just kind of now is just like clockwork. Okay, I need to get these pages done before this, and these pages done before this date. And it really does work out. In fact, over the summer, I got 2 issues out over the summer in the span of a month and a half, to the point where I was going so fast that I had to stop to make sure that I wasn't sacrificing quality for the time. Right. So I stopped and I kind of walked away for a little bit and came back and looked at my pages again and made sure my story made sense for that issue. And quite frankly, it was one of the best issues I'd ever put out because cool. it just because I know what I want. I know what I want to happen. I know these characters.
So I did notice that you use an editor as well. Do you bounce ideas off of them? And how involved are they in the process? Sometimes
I will. Like if I'm a little stuck about a scene, or I maybe I want to plus it up somehow. And I can't quite find how to plus it up. Mm-hmm. I will maybe contact, and I have plenty. I'm part of a creator group called the Cosmos, where we do YouTube shows and we talk to each other and we brainstorm and we just have kind of fun talking about stuff. So I'll contact them every once in a while and brainstorm stuff out, or say, hey, I'm struggling a little bit with this. And always good to have somebody to bounce those ideas off of. But like I said, I've had these characters for 35 years. So for me at this point, not to know them like I know my own wife, my own brothers and sisters, would mean to me that I didn't give enough thought into it. So I've been thinking about this thing for 35 years. So it really is like every once in a while I'll go, I think I can do a little better in this episode with the arc or the turn or the surprise or whatever it is. So I will do have people I can bounce ideas off of. But usually it's me sitting in the dark going, I can do this and this and this and this or this or this or this. I like that one. Let's go.
So. And you do it all left-handed too, so more power to you.
I do it all with my correct hand. Yep.
But then that's a good segue, because I want to know, what does correct-handed mean? Is that for lefties?
Left-handed. I used to work when I'm in my 20s. I worked at restaurants. I was a waiter, and every single shift, 2-3 tables I'd be writing it down, and somebody would inevitably go, "Oh, he's a lefty. Oh, watch out for this guy. He's a lefty. Oh, lefty. That must hurt. How did they not get you out of it?" Every single shift.
That's so funny. Well, there's only 11% of us in the world.
Yeah. Oh, lefty. Nice. Correct-handed.
Yes.
So I started making all the jokes, southpaw, and all the typical jokes about it. Right. And then at one point, I just started saying, "Well, you're right-handed. I'm correct-handed." And it's amazing how many times the person, if they were right-handed, would almost get offended that I was calling myself correct-handed. They're right-handed. I'm corrected. Oh, that's not right. You're not corrected. You're right-handed. You're right or left-handed. I'm correct-handed. You're left. So it was always really interesting and amusing to me how maybe 15% of the time people would get mad.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So I started when I started the company 7 years ago ish. I had a couple other ideas for names, and I had some logos made up, and I, was kind of messing around with a little bit, but nothing was like, I wasn't never in love with anything. So somewhere along the line, I made that joke to somebody, or I made that comment that, you may be left-handed, but I'm correct-handed. I'm like, that's it. Correct-handed comics. That's it. It's a perfect logo.
That's awesome.
It's great. It's perfect. So, and it fits me to a T. So it just all kind of worked out. And I think the logo is nice and bold, and it worked really well, and it looks good on the cover, and it looks good on promo. So I couldn't ask for a better logo.
That's an origin story right there. Here's my recommendation, right? Yeah. Whether you want to do it or not, a little mini at the end of an issue of the correct-handed origin story.
The origins of, I like that.
That would be awesome.
That might be.
You can have him as a superhero. You could even have him as a hand. He could be the thing. Yeah. This is how I came to be. Oh, that's the wrong.
I like it. POV, where I'm just doing stuff with my left hand.
Yeah, even better.
Everybody's like, what? You're using the wrong hand. No, I'm using the correct hand.
Well, you see his little two fingertips from the point of view.
Yeah. It's funny because I have noticed with a couple things of yours that we've checked out that as fanciful as the concepts are, very sci-fi, horror, paranormal. There's also an element of autobiographical content. So, case in point, the thing you sent us for this, the short. Will aliens do my homework? Did I get that correct? Yeah. Yes. As I'm reading this, I'm like, oh yeah, this guy is a teacher. Like these are some of this, not the alien invasion, but some of this interaction with the kids and how the kids are going. Clearly this is somebody who knows that world. Yeah. So again, doing something about the origin of correct-handed comics. Weaving in your waiter backstory in there, and then some zombies invade or a mummy invasion or something, and you guys got to save the world with his left hand. That's or his correct hand.
So good, yes.
Little the Aliens Do My Homework was one of those fun ones that really just kind of came out of walking around my classroom. The kids were drawing or whatever, and I had these big, huge bay windows in my room. I've been really lucky that in most of the schools that I work in, I've had really big rooms with really big window, great light, and all that kind of stuff. But I was just kind of walking around. I looked out my window, and for some reason, I just thought, what would I do if aliens attacked right now? How would I get these kids out of this classroom. There was like 24th graders or whatever in there. And I walked over to my desk and I just could have put a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and my Sharpie right there on the table. And every time I walked around, I wrote a bullet point of what I wanted to have happen. And by the end of the day, I had the whole script written. And by the end, 2 weeks, 2 weeks later, I had the thing drawn. Done. And 3 weeks later, it was published. So it was one of those things where that putting all those little details in. I always tell people that if you're a teacher or you have a teacher in the family, they would really get a kick out of this. And it's not just a fun sci-fi story. It has those elements of truth to it also, that any teacher who reads it goes, oh yeah, I know that kid, or I recognize that situation in there. Yeah. So really fun. That was one that just came out of like just being in the classroom and super fun and super fast. And it was great.
Yeah, the thing that I really appreciated about reading this, and this is when I can read something or see something and it makes me chuckle out loud, or like an elicit an emotional response that way, it's pretty cool. And it's mostly like your writing in here is really done well because you know the context of the not only the characters but how they are in everyday life. Like the teacher sounds like a teacher. Yeah. Fourth graders, they're 8, 9 years old. They absolutely have the attention span of a cat that's playing with multiple toys. So the fact that they're being invaded, yet asking these really outrageous questions while they're being invaded is just hilarious. Yeah. Because there's so much truth in that. No matter how scared an 8-year-old is, if he just goes, ooh, ball, or ooh, toy, just gets distracted for a second. Yeah. And those moments that you found there just made it not only funny, but just made it really relatable as well. No, so it was pretty cool to read something like that. And to have, like, you've done a wide variety of genres. So it's not just you're not a one-trick pony, which is pretty cool. But when you're so close to the material, you can see how it resonates. And that's what I found really entertaining about this. And then even the question at the very end, what I'm not going to, no spoilers here, but that question at the end was just like, holy shit, that's the way to cap a story.
Yeah. Well, I try to make sure that my one shots, there's always a lot more there. So if something does take off and people want to see more, I've got plenty of story to tell with those characters. And with and do my homework, I think it's really fun because I don't know if I've ever seen. There have been protagonists in movies. The one with Mark Wahlberg with the trees who are attacking. He was a teacher, but I don't know if I've ever seen a protagonist in any way in any kind of media that was a teacher, a female, and an art teacher. I don't think I've ever seen that. So for me, it was kind of like, this is a brand new thing that I don't think not to say nobody's ever done it before, but to have those three things about your protagonist, I don't know if I've ever seen a protagonist like that in any other media. It's one of the reasons I changed the protagonist from male to female because I wanted like that triple thread of art teacher, female, and teacher alone, teacher, art teacher, and female to just give that character more like separation from anything else.
Right. Yeah. No, it was cool. The one thing I can actually see, I'm sorry, John, but I could see sort of like, that movie Vanishing Point with what's his name? I got it right here. No, the guy from Inner Space. You're gonna know Dennis Quaid. That's great. So he was, if you know what I'm talking about. So it's the same story. In that movie, it's the same story being told 5 times or 4 times from different points of view, but concluding to the same thing. So in my head, as you're saying that, I can see this story being redone, but now being told through one of the students. And even like the point of view would change, like the camera angles would change, as well as the dialogue of what they're hearing and what they're saying would be hilarious.
Yeah,
I'm already laughing in my head.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think is interesting about that story in particular is you take something that is sadly becoming, and has been, for some time now, all too common. As a tragic event that we hear about all too frequently now. And usually when that material is tackled, like in a recent movie like Weapons, when that sort of you're playing in that sort of schoolyard, we'll say, it is very serious. It is very, there's a lesson to be learned here. I like that you took the anxiety that exists in that situation and a fear that you've probably had to deal with when you've probably had to have active drills and things like that. You as a teacher, that you've taken that and then you've done it in a real sort of fun 1950s alien invasion Ed Wood sort of realm there. And that what you've kind of done, which I appreciated, was you sucked the scariness out of a scary situation and a real world situation. Again, because in the real world, we're not dealing with the aliens, and you've kind of brought it back to a nostalgic childhood adventure, almost like a Monster Squad kind of vibe, like where the kids are showing bravery in spite of the horrific situation that's happening around them. And I applaud you for that, because that I think is very difficult to do. And I think that in other hands, it might come across as crass and unfeeling, but with yours, it really did feel like a what would I do if I were in this situation, and how would I respond?
And that's exactly how it came about. And yeah, there are things that happen in the book that you're like, holy smokes, but then moving forward, there had to be a moving forward. And I think that's where the teacher really starts to shine, because anybody, you would completely understand them buckling in that situation and having just breaking down, and everybody gives up. But I think that was really that turning point for that teacher to know that people don't, kind of set up at the beginning. She's, maybe not the best employee in the world, but that doesn't mean she's not a good teacher.
Doesn't mean she's a
strong person. Yeah.
And it shows, when someone, again, I don't want to give away too much, but someone sort of gives her some praise, and she's like, I don't need your praise. I was just doing what I was doing. But then the one kid's like, I'll take it. I feel like this,
Yeah. So, but to your point, John, so we look at the movie Weapons, because I've seen it recently. Great movie, by the way. It scared the shit out of me at a lot of points. I think the tone of that movie is the same all around, meaning that every character is in that same like morbid, scary, whatever's going on in the movie. And I think when we look at, Aliens Do My Homework, the teacher is that way the entire time. Like, she's seriously in like 911 mode. How do I save these kids? How do I get them out? She's in fight or flight. Where the kids are the ones that bring the levity to the situation, and they're being kids. So we look at Weapons, those kids, like the kid that was, being tortured or whatever. And if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but just the situation that he was in was really serious. And I think if there was a moment of levity in there, I think it would have changed the tone of the movie. Good or bad, it wouldn't have mattered. I think if there was a joke in there or something, then we would have had something similar that was happening here. But like if the kid was scared all the time and just whining and not knowing what to do, I bet you that would have changed the tone of this comic.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're in the moment with, like, especially when a teacher curses and now one kid just says the line right afterwards, I'm like, fuck. So some kid would say that. They would say there's aliens shooting at the school, and some kid would just completely forget that that's happening and say, oh, blah, 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 blah. And that just fucking made me laugh. I know kids that would do that.
Thanks, man.
So, yeah, for a one shot, dude, when we do one shots, oftentimes, because it's hard, you got 22, 24 pages, whatever it is, to get a world, number one, built in there so that people understand the dynamics of that world, context of that world, and then being able to have a first act, second act, and a third act that actually concludes everything in there. And we've, as long as John and I have been doing this, and we don't crap on anything, but there's stuff that does, miss the mark sometimes, or sometimes we miss the mark. Like the content is just so over our head that sometimes we don't get it. And if he sees it a different way, then it makes me understand. But this, in a nutshell, Yeah, this is what we look for when we're looking for one shot. So,
well, thanks, guys. I
to
really
you,
appreciate
Bobby.
the praise. Thank you so much.
And the fact that it's in black and white, it's even better.
Yeah. Now and the design element too, the choice, instead of doing the flying saucer, you just, do that. And then how that design informs what the aliens look like when we do eventually see them. Yeah, it's a really fun thing. And you're right, there's a lot of room to expand.
I bet
on
they taste delicious.
Yes. But yeah, definitely a lot of room to expand on that. But what I think is fascinating as far as what you've been doing as well is, so you had, your ambitious 50-issue saga that you wanted to chug away at and get that done. And a lot of people, that would just be it. That would be their sole focus.
Yeah.
But in between issues of Offspring, you're doing things like Will Aliens Eat My Homework and other little one shots or other things like that. Do you find that do you do that as sort of a break from the larger narrative, just to flex some different muscles? Do you sometimes feel you get a little lost in like you might get story elements are creeping up in other things? Does it feel a little schizophrenic, or is it, like I said, is it just like, some days I want to play tennis and then, but then some days I just want to go for a run, right?
Yeah. It's kind of all that, it's my brain. And my wife constantly says, will you stop your brain for a second? My answer is, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't. So whatever, like what I try to explain to her is whatever is going on in her brain about any given situation. We may be standing in the same room, same things are happening. Whatever's going on in her brain, I've got that times a million. So my brain is constantly scenarios, constantly like, this person, what would that person say? That person looks like they'd be mean. That, like it just is a constant barrage of where it could go. So to have that, it really is a release. And The Offspring is a great release for that. But to be able to work in different genres, to be able to have those ideas, like I said, walking through a classroom one day and then blow up a script, it's done, and I read it back and I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. Let's do this. To be able to have that opportunity, it really is like scratching another itch. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm trying to think of an analogy other than itching, but it really is like taking a part of your brain and relieving the pressure from one part of your brain to be able to now focus on the big thing again. So if those one-shots were really about, because I love all genres and because I love creating comic books and I'm pretty fast, I can get a one-shot out, a black and white one-shot in about a month. So I'm pretty fast at it. It really is that way to be able to relieve the pressure of that. So now I can go focus on this again. And like I said, I've got 5 one-shots. I'm actually just started a script for another one that a buddy of mine was like, you write it, I'll draw it. Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, great. So, so it never stopped. Even though I've said now it's The Offspring, I've got so much other content. Now it's The Offspring. It's never just now The Offspring. It's always okay. Let me take a few minutes while I'm watching football or whatever, and to write the script down.
Right. So this is great because you're in a position where we speak about this quite often as indie creators. Creator-owned creations, and you're a one-man show, so it's a little bit different because you make your time, you have your schedule, whatever it is, but yet you have a full-time job, you have a family, and you do this. How do you find balance in all of that so that the wife isn't left out in the cold, work doesn't get impacted, you still get sleep, and your brain doesn't explode?
Sometimes it is tricky, but I'm really lucky that my wife is understanding. She understands sometimes it frustrates her, but she understands the not want, but need to be able to do this at this point. It was something that we had been together for almost 15 years, 13, 14 years before I even started doing this by myself. Wow. So, and it was always drawing. And then when I started this, I think she even said to me, this is what you should have been doing for those last 15 years. And I know I wasn't ready yet, but now I'm ready. Let's do it. So it really is not, I always say I'm not like dividing my time between family and comic books and work. I'm multiplying my time. So being able to use my time wisely for me is very, very important. That doesn't mean I don't sit and scroll on TikTok for a little bit too long. It doesn't mean I don't, just sit and watch a movie from time to time, or go out to dinner with my wife and I go walks, or I go, outside with kids or whatever it is. But if I know that can multitask, I'll do it. And like I said, yesterday Saturday, I was watching football and I had my papers in front of me, and it's just, I wish I had it right here. It's just one of the clipboards, and I'll put typing paper in it. I'll have my pen, and I'll just, in between touchdowns or whatever, I'll just write it out. I'm like, and I'll stop for a minute and think about what I want to do next. Oh, there it is. That's the next thing. So it really is about multiplying your time rather than dividing it, and making sure that if you do have a big chunk of time, be ready for it.
Right.
Like don't sit down and go, okay, I have 4 hours. What am I going to do? Like, you should have, if you know you're going to have 4 hours, the day before, you should be mapping out exactly what you do when you sit your butt down in that chair. That should be like, I've got to ink this, I've got to do this, I've got to da. And that'll take up 4 hours, and you'll have a good chunk of stuff done. Somebody keeps saying, I keep hearing like, a page a day. And there are days that I don't get any work done because of everything. But when I know I have 4 hours, I'm going to get 4 pages done. And I hope that in that span, if I need to go back to add a few more details, if I need to clean something up, if I need to change a panel, it'll happen in the process, but get it down.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. So let me ask you, did you have something, John, before I go?
You mentioned your speed on your art, and it's interesting because it doesn't show. It doesn't look rushed. It looks like you took time. It looked rather than doing it in between downs on during a football game, it was like you're watching baseball and doing, there's a lot more time in between action to get that done. So it really does. How did you kind of come across this style that works best for you? Where you not only have speed, but you have accuracy, because everything's nice. It's not sloppy. It's not rushed. Like I said,
I really do think it's just like that. Like I said, 7 years ago, I was finally ready. So I didn't have those hang-ups of, oh no, what if I mess it up? Oh no, I'm not good enough. Oh no, I'm not going to be able to do it, this or that or what. I really just did not have those. Not saying that every panel is perfect. Not saying that my art is the greatest art in the history of the world or anything like that. But I know my style. I know what I can get done. I trust myself to be able to get it done in a common sense way to tell the story. And I know that I can have some panels that are just there to help move the story along, so that I can focus on those big panels, those big wow panels later. So I'm not worried about if two characters are talking in a room. I want to have all those things. I want to have a front and a back. I want to have foreground and background. I want to, perspective. All of that stuff's going to happen, but I'm not concerned if it's not the greatest panel ever made. I'm concerned that the anatomy is correct, that the facial features match what they're going to say to each other, that the background makes sense for what I'm doing, and I have good enough detail to be able to say they're in a bedroom, they're in a closet, they're in a pool, they're in a whatever, and that there's room for the dialogue. So if I've hit those criteria, it might not be my favorite panel in the world, but I know it's getting the job done, so that I can later on, three pages later, is the big splash, amazing splash page. I'll make sure that has the big wow factor stuff. So sometimes it's just utilitarian, just getting the story moving forward so that you can get to the big wow.
You can definitely see it, and it's funny because you can tell somebody who's not really a sequential artist, like from one panel to the next panel, time can be quite different. So that gutter space allows us to know, or has us fill in what happens in between the panels.
Yeah.
But that time in the panel is determined by what you're drawing in there. And it's clear that when you go from one panel to the next, you can tell how much time has passed, or you can tell what angle you're now shooting from and stuff like that. Which is, it sounds easy, but when you sit down and you start doing it, it can look really, really good. But if you can't tell the story without the text, then it's not sequential art. Yeah. Because the story should be able to be told without the text bubbles. And so when you look at the panel layouts and stuff like that, it's pretty cool to see that. I don't know if at this point it's just automatic or how much is actually intentional when you're drawing it out on the page, what you want actually the reader to see or be exposed to. Because there's what you want as far as information for us to take in and what you want us to be able to, infer ourselves.
For the most part, it's intentional. There are happy accidents from time to time. And then times where it's like those unhappy accidents, you're like, ugh, okay, I'll come back to this panel later. I'll get it. It'll happen. I know it'll happen. But yeah, it really is. Again, just trusting myself to know that it's gonna work out. It's gonna be clear. I have enough experience to be able to make sure that the story makes sense and that everything looks cool or good or funny or whatever it is.
Oh, so that's good.
I usually ask this of creative teams. I'm going to ask this of you for your process. Marvel method or full script? So are you just going? Do you have an outline? Do you write a script and then you draw from that? Are you just going from your head to the page?
Yeah, I thought I had my thumbnails right here. I don't. No, I do not do full scripts. So I'll do. Sometimes I will go panel to panel. It really depends on the scene and what's happening in the scene. Sometimes I'll just go 4 panels of these characters talking to each other, and I'll make sure that looks really cool with the characters talking to each other, or it'll be. A lot of times with more action scenes, I will break it down. I'll even draw out a little, like if they're in a field or they're, wherever they are on a bridge, I will do a little drawing of where everybody is, and I'll bullet point each character's movements so that when I turn the camera, it makes sense to where they are. So I don't oftentimes have full scripts. I will say that when I'm thumbnailing, if there's something specific I need the character to say, I'll write it down under the thumbnail. But for the most part, I'd say maybe it's 50-50 that the lettering happens, the dialogue happens as I'm lettering. And there are times where I'm lettering and I'll go, oh, I hate that. Let me stop for a minute. Let me go get a drink. Let me go whatever. And I'll come back and I'll think as I'm doing it, and I'll go, that's better. Usually when I'm not paying attention, like the kids and I are playing volleyball, or my wife and I are talking or whatever, and I'll go, that's it. Give me a minute, and I'll come over and I'll type it down. So they're used to that. But yeah, full scripts, no, it would definitely slow me down. Right. And I don't need that because I know where I'm going. I know who the characters are and what they're doing. Yeah. So
that's one of the things that I really appreciate about this medium is that there's no right way or one way to do this to get it out to the world. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we understand your creative process. We know how long you've been doing it. It would have been really nice to see where you were if we met 7 years ago and see how that process went through, because you can tell when somebody has their process refined and down to a point, really comfortable, just the material. Yeah. So we're at that stage. So for me, the creative process, you own it. You own that space. Now, for me, this is a 2-point question. So one, because we always talk about the creative process, but we never really talk about the business side of it as well. So is there a business plan on your end? Like, are you going to conventions? How are you getting your book out there? Or is this just a passion project, and if somebody picks it up, they pick it up? And if so, what is the end goal for you?
So the end goal is to finish the story. Ultimately, that's always the end goal: finish the story, and to be able to hopefully get more stories out, like my one shots or graphic novels or whatever it is. But the B story, the B plan is to get as many eyeballs on this thing that I'm creating as I possibly can. So that does mean conventions. I will say that right before COVID hit, I was gearing up for 3 or 4 conventions that year, and then it blocked out. So now with, my kids a little bit older and, all that stuff. And I do conventions over the summer. Now I'm starting to like pick up more conventions over the year to be able to sell my stuff. I have never done a Kickstarter just because I don't need to pay anybody. It's all me. So it'll really only cost me time, but it's also a great way to get eyes on your book. So if I don't do a Kickstarter in the next year and a half-ish or so, I'm kind of an idiot, because it's a great way to get not only money in to be able to continue to grow the business and do maybe different things than I haven't done before, but also a way to be able to get eyeballs on your work. I also have a plan to maybe talk to a few other companies about consolidating to be able to use. That's kind of what the Cosmos does, the artist group that I'm a part of, to consolidate to be able to use all of our powers combined to really continue to get each other's works out and books out and things like that. So, I wouldn't say in any way, shape, or form that I'm any kind of businessman. I'm an artist first and foremost. But I think that my plan for getting eyeballs on my book and to continue to get eyeballs on my book is a good one for me now, and will continue to grow as I continue to create content.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, everybody's process is different, and oftentimes when we speak to creatives, it's the one thing that they don't think about until they realize that when they're going into the red in life and in finances, because it can be quite expensive. And then when you start printing books, then it gets even more expensive. And then the type of books that you print out, the quantity of books that you print out, and now that we got all these tariffs. Things are just getting more and more expensive.
Prices have gone up. Even the printing that I do, the prices have gone up. And I don't print out 1,000 books,
right?
Because I don't need 1,000 books. So I'll print out the amount that I need, which is a smaller run. But those prices have definitely gone up. So it may be possible that in the next year I need to do something different. So it really is a constant change and constant try to figure out the best way to be able to stay in the black. Even if it's not always monetarily, but emotionally and physically, to be able to stay in the black, to be able to continue doing what I'm doing. And it's just a constant assessment and reassessment.
Yeah. That's one of the things that we find as, independent creators is that, we can get a fan base, but in this day and age, because there's so much material that's available, oftentimes it's material that's available on a steady pace. So when we have creators that are creating projects and they have one issue come out, in January, and then the next issue doesn't come out until August or the year later, you tend to lose traction that way. And you have a ton of material out there. So it'd be really weird if you didn't have a decent following. And I think if you have that following, the Kickstarter with a following makes sense. Somebody who's just starting out and wants to do a Kickstarter but only has 10 people following them on Instagram is probably not going to have the same success as somebody who has, a couple thousand or has been doing it and built up a fan base over, a couple years span. So I think being able to do that and being able to have those tools accessible is also key as well. Going to the conventions so that you can build a greater fan base as well, so that you can send them over to Kickstarter. Because, listen, at the end of the day, we're not going to be living in mansions doing what we're doing. But I think if we can, I think for us as creators, and this is me speaking as a creator, I think we get longevity and satisfaction that our stories are in the hands of people that are enjoying it.
Yeah. And really, in the end, my biggest hope is that my kids, their kids, and their kids, and their kids will one day have the 4 omnibus, because it's 4 seasons, 50 issues, the 4 omnibus sitting on their somewhere on a shelf.
Ooh, and signed copies. Signed copies, yes.
You charge your kids for the signature.
100%.
So one more question then. So we're looking at, because I really am interested in the business portion of it, because as creators, most don't. And I think, passion is great until you run out of money, and it'll all take you so far. So are you looking for other avenues? Have you looked into distribution? So we know this we're not going to speak about it anymore, John, I promise. But since the downfall of Diamond and the split with the distribution companies, and there's sub-distribution companies within distribution companies, there's more opportunity to try to get into the mainstream market, which would be really cool. I mean, if your book is sitting on comic book shelves, across the nation, that's another bump up. Have you thought about that at all?
100%. I think with the after what happened with Diamond, I think that for me, it's kind of like a hurry up and wait situation. So paying attention to all these other distributors that are kind of trying to fill in the gaps, and hoping to see who bubbles up to the surface. Does that make sense?
Yep,
so, yep. To be able to kind of wait, because I'm, again, in no big hurry. What I'm doing works for me right now, in the hopes that continuing to steadily grow as I continue to get closer and closer to 50. But it really is about, there's been a couple people who have reached out to me, like, have you seen this guy? This guy looks like this guy really is going to do it. And then 2 years have gone by and nothing, there's no movement whatsoever. So it's, and we, all three of us know this is a hard business. So you might have somebody that's super gung ho. It's going to happen. It's going to be great. And then you don't hear from them for 3 months, So, and they might be doing things, but it's that communication also that's super, super important. So I think really me in my corner, doing what I'm doing right now, but always keeping my head on a swivel to make sure that I'm paying attention to opportunities that might arise.
Okay, fair enough.
I also think that you're in a really good position, especially with the hurry up and wait. The hurry up is finish the story, right?
Yeah,
you're so close to the finish line now, right? And the wait is, okay, we'll see who surfaces at the top. The luxury you're going to have is you're going to have a completed 50-issue story ready to go that no one has to wait for you to finish, whether you're bringing that to a publisher or you're self-publishing through Kickstarter. Because even with a lot of Kickstarters I have a concept, I have an idea, I just need the scratch to finish the idea. Your thing is there, it's done, it has that built-in following, like Angel said. So that's great, because no one's going to be waiting on you to finish something. No, you'll hit every deadline at that point because it's done. And I think that just puts you in a really, really good position.
I think so too. I think really it's always about, for me, content and story first. So now with a good amount of content and knowing exactly what I want to do with the story, now it's just a matter of, like I said, just continuing to build on top of the awesome sandwich.
Nice. So if somebody wanted to get their hands on your stuff now, well, not your stuff, but the content, where would they go?
So correcthandedcomics.com. There are links to every book I've ever created in print and digital. You can go to Global Comics also and just look up correcthandedcomics.com. I have a bunch of like insider stuff and cool videos and cool things on all my social media. So from old people Facebook all the way to TikTok, Instagram, X, what's the other one? Blue Sky. If you just look up Correct Handed Comics or me, David Whalen, you'll run to that blue hand right there. And there'll be a whole bunch of cool stuff to look at. And 90%, 99% of the posts that I put onto has a link to my website.
Nice.
So everybody can jump on there and check out some cool stuff. And there's something there for everybody. I think.
There absolutely is. I love that. I'm going to go back and read the story again. All right, so we're getting towards the end here. So this is the one question that I love to ask of all our creators when we have them on. If there's any piece of advice that you would give to somebody that's starting out just like you did 7 years ago, what would it be?
I would say don't get in your own way. Make sure that if you want to do this, do it. Don't strive for perfection, or don't worry about making mistakes. You're not going to reach perfection, and you are going to make mistakes. So if you want to do it, and you can adjust as you go. But don't adjust so much that you've stopped. You know what I mean? Not every panel needs to be perfect. Not every line of dialogue needs to be Shakespearean. Just create something. Get better at creating that something in the hopes that somebody will look at it and say, hey, that's pretty good.
Nice.
In the hopes that you're proud of it also.
Yeah, that's the one thing you got to make sure is you're happy with what you're putting out. Doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be finished. Finish is oftentimes much better than being perfect.
Finished is hard in indie comics. A lot of times the people will start and then, hey, where's that book that you talked about 3 years ago? Oh, well, but nope, you got to get it done.
It's on the toilet seat.
Yeah.
It all starts there. David, listen, this has been fantastic. And yeah, listen, you're awesome, bro. I love reading your stuff and seeing your stuff. And I wish you nothing but the best. I can't wait till you get to 50.
Come back when you have finished. Come back and let us know how it went for you and where it's going and what you got cooking after that.
Yeah,
that sounds great. I hope to do it before I get to 50. Can I do it before I get to 50?
Sure.
Maybe 40. Yes. How about 42? Let's do 42.
42 sounds good. And yeah, listen, if down the road you do decide to do a Kickstarter, definitely share the information with us, because we'll throw it out there and try to get as many people on that for you.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you, John. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on again.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. So
quick question. Who's your team for football?
Bengals, Cincinnati.
All right. Well,
man. With that being said, that was David Whalen there. David, again, thank you. You guys can go to correctedhandedcomics.com. That is the left hand. If you're not left-handed, it'll probably sense it and kick you out, but then you can go ahead and try again later on. Yeah, it's all good. Listen, guys, thank you for joining us today. As always, until next time, read indie, support creator-owned. All right, guys, peace out.